Hey everybody, in this video we are going to take a look how to take a curve and then bevel and taper it so you can make some curved bevel tapered objects that's sort of like this. There's like a tooth or a horn or some sort of spout. You can do pipes or cables, that bend and turn, and this thing's like either a tentacle, lizard's tail, whatever you want to call it. Anyways, you'll get the idea and you'll have some ideas in your head what you can use with this. So let's get going on it. Make sure you're in top-down view, so press 7 on the numpad. You don't want to be in this view or it gets hard to move some of the points around. So press 7, and we're going to add a curve circle. I'm going to actually use this circle. I'm going to press G here just to grab it over here. I'm going to use it later. You're going to see it's going to be the shape that I use for the beveling. Next, I'm going to add a curve bezier. If you haven't worked with curves before, you can hit Tab to go into edit mode. And then we can move these points around or build upon them just like a model. So you can hit right click or left click to select whatever mode you have here. And you can hit E to extrude, and I'm just going to leave mine at that. If you want, you could right click and G to grab the control points, right, just to change the way that looks. Okay, and I'll just sort of leave it like that. And let's just get right to the first one. Hit Tab to go back into object mode. And on your tabs here, we're going to go to the Object Data tab and press it. And you're going to see here, if you go to the very top, you have 2D, 3D. I'm going to leave 3D. I'm going to scroll down a little bit to Geometry. And you have two main options here. You have beveling, and then here we have some tapering. So here's what I'm going to do first. First, I'm going to do the bevel. If you just did this right now, you can see what that does. Okay, it actually does bevel it in all directions, but you have another option here which I like better, and my other option is to leave that 0 and pick an object. So let's take our Bezier circle, and you're going to see what it does. It's actually taken the circle and it's turned it sideways, and it's gone along the curve. Now this is pretty good. At any point you can actually go into edit mode, tab, and you can actually grab these points. Now I'm just going to make sure I grab Y, G, Y, and now you can see you can basically shape your curve, and that circle gets moved along the curve. So that's what this bevel one does. Okay, so not too bad. What can you also do with it? Well, this object we're using here for the bevel, let me hit Tab to go into object mode, select my circle, hit Tab to go into edit mode of the circle. I'll hit 7 to make sure I'm straight up and down. And you can see here you can actually adjust the circle. So I can hit G on that point, grab it, G on that point, grab it. I can hit G on that little handle, expand it out, G on that handle, expand it out, just to show you how it's actually dragging it. It may seem a bit more obvious now, right, with the sort of bell shape. And you can see I have this bell shape. That's what's being dragged through the curve. Now, how does it know which sort of direction this is flipped? I think it's done. Okay, this is what I think. It's done on this object's local y-axis. So the y-axis is going this way on my curve. If you're actually in edit mode, you select all, and I just do a rotate Z, and I change that like that. You can see how it sort of changes, right? So I believe it's the y-axis that gets used as a height to go along this curve. So you have that. So not too bad, right? I'm going to go back into object mode here and show you a little second part to this. I'm going to leave this the same. Maybe hit S to scale it down a little bit. And then I'm actually going to hit 7 for top-down view. And I'm going to show you the other option here, which is the taper object and what tapering does. It's easiest just to show you. I'm going to add another curve, Bezier. Now this one, it's good to do this one in top-down view with the y-axis like this, because this time the y-axis again plays a big role. So when I hit Tab to edit mode, let's just zoom in a little bit and hone in on it. The way this works is this is going to control sort of the thickness of the extruding. You'll see what that means, and it does it based on the y-axis height. So you'll see here I have a point. This is basically the home. I have another point here. I'm going to hit G. I'm going to grab it up a bit. I'm going to hit E. I'll extrude and move up. And I'll hit E again and maybe do a quite rapid down. You can change the handles if you want. to make it, look, it doesn't really matter too much, but make it a little smoother. There, that's not too bad. And I'll just leave mine sort of like that. And let's see what this ends up doing. Now remember, where there's Y height, that's where it's going to be thicker. So it's going to be thick right here because there's a lot of Y height. And then it's coming down to 0. And here it starts off close to 0 because there's very little Y height. Now let's use this curve as a taper object. So go back into object mode. Select your curve again. Remember, that is a curve tucked inside of there. And in the taper object, let's pick Bezier Curve 1. Okay, that was this one right here that I just made. Let's give it a go. And you can see the overall result. It's almost like a little salamander tail of some sort, right? So it's this bell shape. It's still being used, but this is now dictating the height. So you can see here where there was a lot of Y height, this got thicker and bigger, then it tapers down. You can just go in the edit mode here if you wanted to, and you could grab these points. Let's take this one, grab Y, so GY. Let's move it down, and you can see how you can bring it down to 0, and it comes down to 0. You bring it up higher, and it gets wider. So sort of a neat effect you can do. You can fiddle with these handles, etc., and change the shapes. Hopefully you can see how this can be used on curved pipes of any sort. You don't have to do the tapering if you don't want. How you can make horns or bells. I'll sort of do that quickly in a second and just show you the results here. So here's a little fast forward here. I just made 2 quick objects here. Here's like a horn, tooth, whatever. All I did for this one here is I just had a curve. You can see it in there. Just made the curve, and I just took a circle and extruded, and then this curve up here was the height. So you can see it starts out thick, and then it gets thin right at the tip there. This one here is just a pipe, so that's just a curve. And with that curve, that was just a basic circle. Extruded along the curve. That had been curved out. You can see here the curve just went along like that. So you could use a simple sort of wires, pipe sort of stuff when you need rails, handrails, stuff like that. Pretty easy to do. Other things I will note here, you do have options on these tapering and curve things here. You can see here fill caps. You can sort of see what it does there. Just fills off the cap. And the other thing you can do is you can also do this, bevel start, bevel end. You can decide where along the curve you want this effect to take place. You could say, let's start at 20% through and only go to, 60% through the object, right? So that way you don't always have to have it match exactly the whole length of the curve. Anyways, that's really the point of this. So hopefully you find this useful. It pops up in a lot of models, and it can be nice to know how to do that stuff. Anyways, thanks for watching.